Американская глубинка. Взгляд на США из глубинки.
Здравствуйте, дорогие друзья! С вами канал Американская глубинка. И сегодня мы проводим интервью с братом моего мужа. Зовут его Томас. И сейчас он немножко расскажет о себе. Мы поговорим немножко о России, о его службе в морском флоте США. И потом Томас ответит на ваши вопросы об оружии. So Thomas, can you please tell my viewers, my friends, about yourself?
Well, Tomas Gейтс, 32 years old, and we obviously live in Wyoming. And I like being outdoors, so I do a lot of hunting, fishing, camping, and stuff like that. And obviously shooting is a pretty big hobby for me. So those are pretty much what I do.
Can you tell me a little bit about being in Navy? Like, what was your job when you were in Navy? Yeah. And tell me about the countries you traveled to. And I know you were in that nuclear factory in Japan.
Yeah, the earthquake and tsunami.
Yeah. So.
I was in the Navy for 7 years. I joined in June of 2006 and got out July 12? 13, somewhere in there, yeah. So I was stationed in 3 different areas, technically 2. But so I went to boot camp, went to training, went to Washington State. I was an air traffic controller, so I helped control planes and bring them in for landing and separation and all that. After I was in Washington State for 2 years, I got deployed to the USS George Washington, and it was stationed out of Yokosuka, Japan. I was there for 3 years, so we did all kinds of stuff out there. We're pretty much, the way they always explained it to us is we were the first line of defense against another Pearl Harbor. So that was the whole point of our battle group. So we did a lot of just practicing out there, and so basically just showed presence to any other country in the region. Been to many different countries, pretty much everything I can think of in Asia. We've been to Australia as well, so Australia, Japan, Hong Kong, the Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, Korea. I think that might be it, I can't remember for sure, but so we were there for all that. I was there, we were actually in port during the earthquake, and we left shortly after the tsunami hit. It hit about 100 miles north of where we were, so it didn't really affect us much. I mean, we saw what it did, and we instantly deployed to go help as much as we could. Unfortunately, we were in the middle of repairs and everything, so our ship was pretty much just a floating city. It couldn't really do much. We had no aircraft on board or anything, but we did do what we could. And that was actually before they even knew about the reactor. Once we found out about the nuclear aspect of it, we had to start doing all those, scrubbing down the ship and make sure there's no radiation and all that. And like I think I've told you before, I've got a big green sheet in my medical record saying that I was exposed to excessive amounts of radiation, but yeah, I'm fine so far.
So for that 3 years, were you in the waters around Japan, or were you ported the entire time?
No, yeah, we were deployed so out of the 3 years, I think I was deployed for probably 2.5 of them. We basically only went back to port once or twice a year, and we'd be there for anywhere between a month to 3 months, just kind of depending on what the ship needed. Because according to higher-ups, higher than me, they wanted at least 1 aircraft carrier, if not 2, in the region active at all times. So pretty much when we had to go to port, one of the stateside carriers would have to come all the way over, and that would be their deployment, and they would sit off the coast.
What was your favorite part about being in the Navy?
Honestly, I think the best part about the military in general, probably not even necessarily the Navy, is just the people. Having that connection with other people and knowing everyone's job, what they're going to do, how to do it, and willing to do anything to protect anyone near you. I loved that.
Thomas, can you please tell me, have you ever met or Russian before you met me, and also tell me of what your impression about Russians is before you met me.
The first Russians I had actually met were the 4 that we hired after we had hired you and you had left. I didn't really get to talk too much. I was on leave from the Navy. Me and my ex-wife, we were up here visiting and met them. We went and did a couple of things together, but that was pretty much it. As for my first reaction to Russians, it was from the Navy, pretty much. We'd have a lot of kind of just boring time that we'd fill watching stupid videos on the internet. And we like to watch like crazy drivers and stuff that happen like that. And it seemed like most of them were from Russia. You all drive a little crazy. As for anything else, I don't really know why America and Russia butt heads so much. Probably just we're both too stubborn to back down on anything. And I don't think it's as bad as our media likes to say it is, but who knows? Obviously, all I know is what I get from you, because obviously you know more than our media tells us, and that's pretty much it.
So if you ever had a chance to go to Russia, would you?
Oh, 100%.
Would
I think
you?
Russia is really cool.
Do you have any specific thing that you would want to do in Russia, or just kind of?
As I say, honestly, the only place in Russia that I even know of is Moscow. So pretty much you would have to be the tour guide, because I don't know anything about it. But yeah, no, I always thought Russia is a really cool place.
So let's talk guns. So I had a viewer that asked some questions after I showed that I have a gun in our house that I rely on for self-defense. He asked some questions such as, when is the self-defense clear and when is it not?
So specifically for Wyoming, each state has their own different laws, but here in Wyoming we do have a stand your ground law. So basically that means if you feel that your life is threatened by either death or extreme harm, you are allowed to use a firearm to protect yourself. Now granted, it'll still go to court. You're still going to have to fight it to prove that you were that. And obviously you can't pick a fight with someone and as they attack you, you can't shoot them and then claim that. So basically it's one of those type of things. If someone busts into your house and you see that they have a knife or a gun or something like that, you're allowed to shoot and defend yourself. Which that was actually considered like a castle doctrine. So basically your house is your castle. You're allowed to defend it. As of July of 2018, I believe it was, Wyoming passed the stand your ground law, which is sort of the same thing, but it means that you can defend yourself as long as you're there legally. So if you're in a bank with a gun, technically that's illegal because you're not supposed to have guns in banks. But you can defend yourself in public if you felt with reasonable cause that your life was in danger, or in your case, your kids were in danger, and all that. It can always be sticky, and obviously the court is always going to err on probably the bad side, especially with guns in America these days, where everyone's trying to fight them to get them banned. So it's that kind of situations.
And we were talking with Brian, like I was saying that if I would have felt threatened by someone actually being in our house and, you know, trying to kidnap kids or something like that, that I would first off shoot in the leg or something like that, just kind of warn. For that, Brian said that they have a right to sue you, saying that, well, you know, harmed me and now I'm, you know, handicapped and stuff like that.
That's pretty much accurate. I mean, you can even look at it in the version from the police. A lot of people, when you see videos online of police shootings and whatnot, people ask, why do they shoot so much? It's like, well, they shoot until the threat is over. So, I mean, yeah, the first probably 3 bullets ended the threat, but they make sure that it's over. Certain states don't want you to like reload and continue shooting. So basically, if you have a handgun like this one, it holds 6 rounds. So I'm not supposed to drop the magazine and throw another one in and continue to shoot. Obviously, if they're running away, you don't want to shoot them in the back because there's no point if he's running away. Then just call the cops and they'll deal with it. But yeah, it's always, unfortunately, with our court system, I mean, I've heard of burglars breaking windows, and as they were crawling in, cut their leg and then sued the homeowner for it. And it's just like
One of the viewers asked if there's such a thing as a self-defense against an animal, and in which cases it would actually be considered a self-defense.
so there is self-defense against animals. The most common is going to be dogs. If you run across an aggressive dog that's threatening you, or in your case children and whatnot, you can shoot the dog. Others, like wild animals, it gets a little bit more sticky type. Like mountain lions are common around here, and I know Colorado has had, I think, 3 mountain lion attacks this year. You are allowed to defend yourself, but you're going to have to be able to prove that it was actually attacking you, whether you have bite marks on it. So like you can't just go see a mountain lion and just shoot it, because they are, in Wyoming anyways, they're considered trophy games, so you actually have to have a tag for it and all that. So if you shoot something and you can't prove that it was self-defense, you are liable for poaching charges and whatnot, which can lose not necessarily your gun rights, but you can lose your hunting rights, to where you won't be able to hunt for however many years they decide, and you can get fined and even jail time. I mean, I get asked at work why I carry all the time, and it's like, well, we're 30 minutes from the nearest cop on a good day, so it's like chances are whatever's happening is going to be long over before a cop can even get here. So I'm going to do what I can to protect myself, my family, and the customers, honestly. It's more of a deterrence in my mind. They know that this business is armed, so they're probably not going to come in just because of that alone. So that's what I hope for.
Speaking about defending the customer, how do customers feel about you carrying a gun?
Well, where we live, we don't have too much of like the anti-gun personalities around. During summer specifically, because we get a lot more travelers from all over the country, so you're more likely to run into people that are afraid of guns. I've had a few comments. I had one dad ask me to put my gun away because his children were afraid, and I told him that if he had any questions or the kids wanted to talk to me, I was more than welcome to talk to him and explain why I carry it. Brian, your husband, he had his gun in his belt and had to like reach up to do something, and his shirt came up, and people were able to see his gun. We actually got a review online saying that our food was great, but we were scared to death because the manager had a gun in his pocket. We're not trying to scare anyone. I mean, it's not our goal. It's the presence of a gun. I feel if you know what you're doing and have at least some training with it, it can make a big difference in all kinds of situations.
You mentioned that the kids were afraid of a gun. In your opinion, what age should the kids learn about the gun and how to use it and the safety of it?
Obviously, that's going to boil down to the parent directly, but I think you can start, maybe not, you won't let them shoot obviously for a while, but you can start teaching them basic stuff on it. Like I know your kids have seen our guns, and we always tell them they're a tool, don't touch them, like they're not for you. You'll learn about them someday, but not quite yet. Sophia's probably getting kind of close to it, but I mean, obviously that boils down to what you guys decide. I honestly think, especially with just our Second Amendment and guns being around, everybody should have a general understanding of them. I think, probably close to teenage years is when they're probably going to start getting into it. I know you can legally start hunting, I think, at the age of 13, with parents, obviously.
Томаса в коллекции около 12 различных автоматов и пистолетов. И сейчас он нам покажет самые любимые его автоматы и пистолет и объяснит, почему у него в коллекции столько оружия.
Well, so the reason I have so many guns, each one kind of has its own purpose. I do have a few that are specifically for hunting and a few that are for self-protection and whatnot. As for example, this one here, this is a Glock 43. It's a 9mm. It's what I conceal carry in my pocket every day. So I have this with me at all times. This one is your standard AR-15. It's made by Springfield. It's also really good for varmint hunting, so any smaller animals it's really good for. It's also commonly used a lot during self-defense, so some people actually use this as their primary home defense rifle and stuff like that because it's light, it's easy to carry, it's easy to operate. This one here, this is a 300 Win Mag. So this one is primarily used for hunting big game. So like for your elk, moose, buffalo type stuff. It just can help take down an animal faster because obviously when you're hunting you don't want to put the animal in any more pain than it needs to be. This one is a long range rifle. It's a 6.5 Creedmoor made by Ruger. It can be used for hunting, it can be used for whatever, but it's meant for long distance shooting, so it can shoot out to over 1,000 yards if you wanted to. I do have other ones that are used for others, so I've got a smaller version that's meant for like deer and smaller animals. I've got a couple of AR-15s. I've got another handgun that's a 45 ACP that I use for hiking for in case I need to defend myself against animals. Just because it's a bigger gun, it holds more. It holds 17 rounds where this only holds 6. So you have a better chance of actually successfully defending yourself.
Это видео не является пропагандой оружия. Использование огнестрельного оружия допускается только в соответствии с законами вашей страны. Смотрите другие видео на моем канале и не забудьте подписаться.